Hello, welcome to the Eagles Wing podcast. This is your host, Jason Deuce Brandt, coming to you today to talk about the topic of employment and getting to work. Later today, I'm going to have a special guest today from the Strategic Marketing and Employment Group, DK Hartman, who is going to talk about employment. But here's the reality. You can get work, you can get employment, you can get income. And then once you have those things, then I can help you with financial counseling, financial coaching to put you on a track to use your money in a way that is beneficial to you, that can help you do all the things you can do with money, how to spend, how to save, how to invest, and how to give. And so with all these things, it requires that you have income. Income is the number one determining factor on your future is your ability to earn. And so that's why I'm so excited to have this interview today with DK Hartman. You know, Mr. Hartman has done some incredible work putting together the processes and the program to get yourself not only trained, but also to find a job, to put all your documentation together, to do a job search, to record everything, and to focus on moving forward in your life. And here's the thing, is where you start is not where you're going to end. And so in the beginning, having an income, it doesn't matter if it is the income or the job, but the idea of having an income is so valuable. Because here's the thing, when you work, when you have a job, it is easier to get promoted or to get another job and to increase and to become better. But when you don't have a job, when you don't have an income, it is exponentially more difficult. It's kind of like when you're dating. When you are single and you are looking for somebody, it's like the opposite sex just flees from you like the plague. But then you finally find somebody and you get into a committed relationship, and then all these people come up out of the woodwork. You know, especially you get married, and there's all these women who try to throw themselves at married men. And so one of the things that, you know, when it relates to jobs, you can become very, very attractive, very valuable by not only becoming employed, but being a value to your company, making good documentation and recording of what you've learned and what you've done and what your skills, and having statistical data. You know, I did X at X percentage or at Y percentage. That is so much better than, oh yeah, I worked as a, construction guy for a year, versus, I framed up 37 houses in the last year. I have, I have 58 hours of training in drywall installation, finishing, whatever it is. By having those documented things, you make yourself more valuable and you can actually quantify your ability. So I just want to kind of encourage you that as you listen to the upcoming interview, that you kind of figure out where you are in this process. Are you completely brand new? Have you never had any professional experience? Have you had no training and no specialized skill? Are you a person that has obtained some employment and has begun the journey? Are you in the intermediate level where you're looking at, jumping ship to another company or going after a promotion, going after more responsibility and more money? Or are you in the experienced column to where you can provide and you can provide great value, not only to an employer, but to your coworkers, to your company, and possibly even strike out on your own, start your own business. It's absolutely doable and possible, but you got to have vision and you got to believe and you got to move forward with your goal. So with that, I'm going to end this podcast, this particular episode of the Eagles Wing podcast, relatively short. Stay tuned for that interview with DK Hartman of Strategic Marketing and Employment Group. This has been your host, Deuce Brandt, Eagles Wing podcast, praying for your skillful and godly wisdom. Hello, welcome to the Eagle's Wing podcast, where we inspire and equip you to soar in every area of life, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, and financially. I'm your host, Deuce Brandt, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to another episode focused on purpose-driven living and professional growth. Eagle's Wing Academy is a holistic training and mentorship organization that empowers individuals to rise into their full potential. Through our programs, we develop leaders in every aspect of life, and that includes career readiness and economic empowerment. Today's guest is DK Hartman, a marketing strategist, career mentor, and founder of Strategic Marketing and Employment Group. If you've ever struggled to connect your education to real-world employment or want to learn how to stand out in today's competitive job market, this episode is for you. Welcome, DK. It's great to have you on the podcast.
Hey, thank you very much. Always great to see you, Deuce. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm very excited today. I think it's going to be a great show. So, DK, tell us about your journey and what led you into the intersection of marketing and career development, and how has skillful and godly wisdom played a role in your path?
Great question. So I started my professional career in the early 90s. My first professional job, I served as a project coordinator within the Y2K projects in software development. My dad was started software development as a programming analyst way back in the 60s. He inspired me to do the same thing when I was in my young 20s, get a career going for myself. So that's where I started my career, software development. My mom was a technical recruiter. So I had both sides of the fence, software development, sales, technical recruitment. The thing is that a lot of my IT work was project-based. So I would work, a Y2K project that would last for a year, right? And then I would hop on board another Y2K project. And then another one. And in between projects, there's downtime, maybe 1 to 3 months. So in that downtime, I decided to try technical recruiting because I had that technical foundation and I enjoy sales. So I decided to kind of do that on my downtime instead of, just kind of sitting on the fence. And what I learned was that I feel like I'm more of a people person than I am a coder, sitting in a cubicle 8-10 hours out of the day. So my technical career lasted until about 2005, and then I started to become a technical recruiter from 2005 and beyond. From that, I decided to rather than, the traditional recruiting role where you have a open job requirement, you have candidates trying to fill that open job requirement, I decided to really try to focus on helping those coming out of an educational program, coming out of school, to market themselves in a professional way and in an effective way that produces results. And so that's how Strategic Meg was founded.
It's interesting. There might be people listening to this podcast that have no idea what Y2K is. They may not even have been born yet. And so I just want to give you a chance to kind of tell us
Sure.
What is Y2K? Why was it important, and why were people throwing money at this problem? I do it in air quotes, but tell us more about that.
Yeah, sure. So that's a very, very good question, Deuce. You're right. A lot of our listeners might not, know what Y2K is. So in the very early 90s, companies were finding that their software development programs that were designed in the 60s and in the 70s, especially financial transaction programs, didn't roll the date forward. So if the year's 1999, right, and that date clock, particularly in finance applications, rolls to 2000, it's not going to roll to 2000. It's a 4-digit year. It starts at 0000. So Y2K was a real thing. There's a lot of people that think it was a farce, that's a way for a bunch of people to make money. Absolutely not. No. If we had done nothing to update those software programs so that those programs could read 2000, the world would be hurting. It would have been computer Armageddon, if you will. So the job was to go through all these program codes and recode them so that they could not only read the dates 2000, but also 3000, 4000, and plus.
Yeah, it was a incredible time for those of you who may not have been born yet. That was the year I graduated high school. And so I remember it clearly. There was a lot of people that were like, it's the end of the world. And it's funny looking back now, but there's a lot of work that goes into making sure everything keeps going. And this is a skillful and godly wisdom. It's knowing ahead of time, this bad thing could happen versus the bad thing has happened. When do you want your electricity fixed? Before it goes down or after? And so that is definitely interesting. And you also talked about, in the early 2000s, becoming a technical recruiter. The thing that I think a lot of people don't do or don't think about is we are told as a society, I would say from elementary school up, you got to go to college, get good grades so you can get a job. So you can, it's this song and dance that it's this magic key. Got to go to college because if you don't get a college education, you're not going to have a future, and you're not going to have a future if you don't get a college education. And it's like this circular reasoning. But what they don't tell you, you can go to college, you can get good grades, you can show up, you can go to classes, you can get all the fancy degrees, get all the certifications, you can get all the education in the world. But there's going to become a time where you're done. You've gotten your diploma, you've moved the tassel over your hat, and you've thrown the hat up in the air and, ooh, I've graduated, I'm arrived. But what they don't tell you is that it's difficult on the other end of that. It's not just someone's going to lay down in front of you and go, oh, please come work for me. Oh, you got the magic piece of paper. You must come work for me. It doesn't, I don't know if it's a misconception or if it's a entitlement mentality or what the idea of young people that if I only go and do that first step, my future is guaranteed. I'm going to make a 6-figure income coming out of it. And I'm going to be a millionaire and Ferraris and, yachts and all that. And for a lot of people, they don't recognize the challenge until they get to it. Can you talk about that at all in your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So back in the day, that was the traditional mindset. And back in the day, that traditional mindset worked. That traditional mindset, you did the best you could in grade school to go to a great college, to graduate that college, to get a job. That ended, 2000? that model, that what was once a semi-successful model ended. With the upturn of technology, that's not the way the world works anymore. It just isn't. So if you graduate, let's take computer science.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you graduate with a computer science degree, 30, 40 years ago, yeah, you were almost guaranteed employment. Not so much today. There's so much competition.
Global competition.
Global competition. Very well. Global competition. We're no longer confined to the United States. It's more of a global effort. So the competition's farce. So, I'm sorry, Deuce. What was the question?
No, just this idea of you go to college, you get the degree, and you are entitled to the life, the good life, whatever. I think we have this idolized view of, if I get the degree, I'm better off than the person who doesn't go to college, who becomes, I don't know, a mechanic or a garbage man or some unskilled, I quote unquote, because there's a difference between the quote unquote educated and the skilled. I'm a personal believer in Eagles Wing podcast. We are believers in learning a skill, learning a trade that cannot be done by somebody in India or Sri Lanka or China. And that is, if you're a plumber, if you're an electrician, if you are a skilled person, you're not going to be replaced by the machine. And maybe one day when Elon Musk creates the Tesla robot that can go in and do your plumbing, I don't know if many people are going to be like, oh yeah, robot, please come into my home and unclog my drain. I believe that the person who is skilled is going to have a position, but this idea of, if I only go to school, if I only get that diploma, I am going to be successful. I think that's a, I don't want to call it a lie, but I think that it's bad advice. Yes, I believe in education. Yes, I believe in bettering yourself, but it's no silver bullet. It's not magic. It's not, so many people graduate and they take on the student loans and they do the 4-year degree and they end up at Starbucks or at a restaurant being a server or at, some very low skilled, when we're in Las Vegas, casino employee. And again, I'm not degrading the people that do, we need people to do all these jobs, but I don't believe you're gonna soar above $40,000 a year in one of these jobs, not an unskilled job for that matter.
Yeah, particularly in the Las Vegas market. So not only that, as we've spoken about before, the when you're 18, when you're 19, 20, 21, I don't know of a person who understood what they wanted to really become, what their passions were in terms of a career until they reached about 35, 30, 35. I know I didn't know. So why not go into the trades until you figure that out? If you do go into the trades, you'll always have a skill, right? You go into the trades to be an electrician, to be a plumber, to be somebody who specializes in some function in construction. You'll always have that skill. If later down in life you want to be an accountant, you want to be a technology professional, a marketing professional, go to school. At that point, when you're 25, when you're 30, when you're mature enough to really understand what you want. In the meantime, just like what you were saying before, Deuce, in the meantime, I would recommend, just like you would probably recommend, to get involved in the trades. They're billing out like crazy. The plumber of 1990 is, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Today's plumber is 30 years ago IT professional in terms of pay rate. In terms of pay rate, 30 years ago, you were in IT. I mean, you were almost guaranteed a job, 60, 70, 80,000 a year in that range. Not so much today. You're looking somewhere in the 40s, unless you're extraordinarily valuable in IT.
So there is a book that I'm reading currently. It's called Men Without Work. And it goes into the concept of, I'm going to lowball the number, but there's roughly 10 million prime working aged men, specifically men, 18 to 55, that are not working, that are not looking for work, that are basically not in the labor force. And there's some statistics of in the United States, there's roughly 14 to 15 million jobs that are without people that are looking, that are available, that don't require a 4-year college degree, that are in these trades that pay very, very well. And there's this epidemic that's going on in our society where these men just are not working. And my thing is, we have two separate crises that are happening. One is that 10 million people just not working. That's how are you building society? How are you making the world a better place? First off, if you're not working, if you're just, and it's not like these 10 million men are just, they're out in the community and they're serving and they're making things better and they're volunteering at their church or civic organization or, out feeding the homeless or doing something that's No, they're at home in leisure, right? They're on their phone scrolling. They're on Facebook. They're on YouTube. They're on PlayStation, whatever you want to call it. Just not participating. So there's that part. Men need to work. This is just a fundamental thing. And it doesn't matter if it's paid work or volunteer work, as long as you're producing and you're creating, I think that provides us value. When you separate yourself from that, that's when people get depressed. That's when people turn to drugs, they turn to substance. And it doesn't matter, it could be food, it could be a drug, could be alcohol, could be sex, could be any number of things, but most of the time are not productive. The other side of that coin is if you look at the labor statistics of the skilled worker, there is going to be in the next 10 years by 2035 that the baby boomer generation is going to completely exit the workforce, completely, because one, they're going to age out. So a lot of people, they've worked their whole lives, they're ready to retire, they're no longer going to be working. Great, they have exited the workforce. Or they're unable to continue to work because our bodies are going to break down and we're all going to die. This is something that is, I don't want to be morbid about it, but we have to realize every day we have is a blessing and a gift. And one day it will all end. But for the baby boomer generation, by 2035, they're all going to be in their 60s and 70s. And so what they're saying, that the current statistics are for every 8 skilled tradesmen, so call it every 8 plumbers who leave the field, no longer are plumbing, no longer have the businesses, no longer do the work, 1 replaces them. So imagine in 10 years' time, it's 2025 currently, and so we kind of have a little bit of time to ramp up. But imagine in 10 years, pipe bursts in your wall and your house is flooding. You call 10 plumbers and no one can see you for a month. You would imagine you would be willing to pay any amount to get your house fixed, right? To get the water to stop flooding your house. But imagine every company that you call, the quickest they can get somebody out to you is a month, not because they don't want your money. It's because they have nobody to do the work. Or it's that the people that they do have are all scheduled and booked out. And at that point, everybody is willing to pay anything. So to your point of the software engineer of the 80s, I believe in the next 10 years, the people that are skilled, that have put the education, got the certifications, got the training, got the experience, are going to be able to charge whatever they want. So to think about it, the plumber 6-10 years from now is going to be able to command $500,000 a year in income, because the point is it's going to be very, very valuable, and especially if we don't replace them. So the foresight of this is, one, I want to get to those unemployed men and I want to tell them, look, you can succeed. You can absolutely have the dream lifestyle. Then want to get them working, get them trained, get them into the field. And if they eventually want to own a business, well, then we find one of these retiring out business owners who want to sell their business. We connect them with one of these young men. We make the connection. We help them forge the deal. We get them through the process, and then we replace the thing. Now, I don't believe it's going to be the only solution, but we got to do something. It reminds me of the, if you ever heard the story of the little boy in the ocean throwing starfish back in the ocean, right? All these starfish on the beach. He's just frantically picking starfish up, throwing in the ocean, picking it up, and a couple walks by and goes, young man, what are you doing? Doesn't matter. Look at all these starfish. There's thousands of starfish. What does it matter? The little boy picks up another starfish, throws it in the ocean, and says, mattered for that one. And so that's kind of a great introduction to kind of why we're doing this thing, and kind of the opportunity, because it is with AI. The coder of the future is going to be somebody putting in a prompt and punching some keys in the keyboard, and it's going to output the thing. Like I said, I don't believe AI is going to replace the trades, and if it does, probably 2050 beyond. So let's talk about the strategic Meg, and what inspired you, DK, to start this business? Because from my understanding, you were in the career services and you did this professionally. And a number of years ago, you struck out and you decided to do this on your own, which is huge. A lot of people desire to start a business, want to start a business, want to be their own boss, want to make their own hours, all that stuff. A lot of people don't make the transition, but you did. So can you tell me about that?
Yeah, sure. So it's all about finding a need. That's what business is all about, finding a need that hopefully there's little competition in doing. So I noticed when I was recruiting, probably in 2010, I would submit a job requirement out on the job boards, and I would get flooded with resumes. And I've been more of a print type person. So I print the resumes out, and then before you know it, I have a 1 foot stack of 120 resumes, and I'm looking through these resumes, and they're hard for me to read, and I have to read them one by one, and I noticed that the common person has zero idea how to write a resume, for one. Okay, so I started a initial business called Strategic Resume Group, which wasn't really a thing. Resume writers weren't really a thing in 2010. So I became part of that journey and started educating people on how to write a proper resume. And what I was taught by a Fortune 500 company, a recruiting company, is that resume writing is much more than putting words on paper. Everything matters when you write a resume. Just like, for example, and I use this example all the time, when you go to a restaurant, right, and you sit down, you open that menu is scientifically designed for your eyes to gravitate to what that restaurant wants you to see as a consumer, first, second, third, fourth, down the line, based upon probably what they want to sell you in order. Same concept with a resume. There's information that you want the employer to see first, second, third, and so on. Not only that, grammatical structure matters. So I found that not many people understood how to write a resume, so I created that business. Okay, unfortunately, that business wasn't enough for me to make a living at. So I then, from that point, decided to bring that knowledge into schools, and I started off with Professional Institute of Technology and Accounting. What I found at PETA was that students have no idea not only how to write a resume, they have no idea how to job search. They don't. So I developed an educational format that teaches students specifically how to write a resume, how to job search, how to interview, all these things. So that's how my business evolved.
So it is one of those things that we're not taught, especially in school. I have 2 college degrees. I have multiple certifications. I've done a lot of quote unquote education. And it really isn't taught. There isn't a success 101. There isn't a track to run on. And it's hard for many people to kind of, it's like I did all this stuff. I did the thing. Where's my carrot? All I'm feeling is the stick. But my question is, how is your approach kind of different from kind of the average career services? Because every school's got a career services. High schools have them. Community college has them. When I went to ITT Tech, we had somebody. They did a terrible job. I mean, just my experience was it was horrendous. Also, with the Department of Unemployment, Dieter, my experience with them in the times of being unemployed, going to them for help, because you think like, oh, wow, this is the agency that's going to help me. And they go, all right, do you have a resume? Okay, we've got it on file. Go to that board over there, pick a job, and then we'll tell you about it. We'll refer you. And what refer you is they give you the web address to where you can apply. And all of those jobs on that job board are the exact same jobs you can find on Indeed or Monster or any job board. And to me, it just felt like, this is stupid. Why am I participating in this process? They're supposed to be here to help me. Tax money's going into this position, this thing to help me, but it's not being helpful. So I just love to know from your end how is it different?
Sure, that's a really great question. It's fundamentally different because I take a recruitment approach to career services, whereas I don't feel that most schools have a career services department that has experience in recruitment. I feel that, at least it's been my experience, the schools that I've talked to, it's not really necessarily their priority. I mean, they want to see their students employed, but I think their priority more so is getting sales, getting students.
Pump them through the system.
Pumping them through the system. So to answer your question, how am I different? I bring recruiting experience. I bring 25 years worth of not only recruiting experience, I've been a job seeker myself. So have you, I'm sure. And where we go back, you and I probably go back to the old school methods of finding employment, which is the best method even in 2025. I also market my students, and I preach the art of professionalism. Because professionalism isn't really taught in any school or in any career services department that I've ever seen besides my own. So it's important to have a career services department that is well-rounded enough in its experience and also its ideology. And strategic ideology is professionalism. You can often substitute lack of experience with professionalism. And that's what I preach, and that's what separates me over the competition that I've ever seen.
So kind of in that vein, I'd love to ask, what are some of the most common mistakes that you see these job seekers make? And how can they apply, the skillful and godly wisdom, this thing that's uncommon, to navigate those challenges?
Sure. The most common mistake I see job seekers make, I see them make several. So to narrow it down is kind of rough. But if I had to, the number one mistake I see job seekers make is they don't take their job search seriously. I had a student some months ago who graduated school, went through my career services program, and 6 months down the line, he's still unemployed. And I said, well, talk to me about your job search. We created you the stellar resume. You went through the job search workshop. You know everything. What's the problem? Talk to me about it. And he had a hard time talking to me about it. My first question was, well, okay, how many jobs are you submitting your your resume to per month? And he tells me 8.
Wow.
And I said, 8? No, that's your problem right there.
Right.
The job search is more of a numbers game. It truly is. I recommend a job applicant submitting their resume to 5 jobs per week. 5 per day. That doesn't sound like a whole lot. It really doesn't. But if you look at what that is, that's what, 25 a week? That's 100 a month. Out of 100 a month, you're going to yield so many interviews. Out of so many interviews, going to yield so many job offers. So I think that's what the number one mistake I see students make is that they don't take their job search seriously enough. They submit their resume to jobs kind of mindlessly.
Same resume, all of them.
Same resume, yeah, kind of mindlessly. They don't take any care into it. I haven't even gotten into resume tailoring, cover letter tailoring. I mean, the scope of it, of a job search is so huge. My saying is finding a job is a full-time job. And it truly is. If you're not putting 8 hours plus a day into your job search, you're not taking it as seriously as you should. And I think technology, has a lot to do with that. For example, I can download the Indeed app. I like Indeed less and less every day. That's my thought on Indeed. But they've automated the process so much where you can just click a button, submit. They have, and the job seeker has no idea what job they're applying to. They're just hitting that submit button, kind of mindlessly. So that is the number one and number two mistake I see students make in their job search.
Because I think in our current society, our culture, it's microwave, it's easy, it's you push a button and it's done. And a big part of it is, let's take a step back with Eagles Wing Academy. First part of what we do is figure out your purpose first before you join an education program, a training program. The whole challenge is if you don't know where you want to go, just going down any path is kind of reckless. And so if you already know what you kind of want to do, in that process, you can research companies that you would like to work for that do the thing that you're looking at doing, and then you can look at their job postings, and you can realize, oh, they want X, they want, this program or this certification or this type of skill set. And then you write that all down, kind of like a vision board. Then you go about your education to gain those things. Then once you have those things, you create some kind of document, call it a cover letter, call it an introductory letter, call it whatever document, let's just call it the document, outlining that you have those skills and abilities that company is looking for, that you have the morals and ethics. Because here's the thing, you can be, and this was kind of the programmer from the 80s, you have these super intelligent people that are just masters and magicians in the ability to code or to do the IT or whatever, but personality, they are just a-holes and no one wants them around. And they're just like, there's this stigma of the IT professional as this, callous person who's, looking down on everybody. And, it's portrayed in movies and TV shows and whatnot. But when you're that valuable, you can avoid morals and ethics and how to live. And if you don't care if people like you or not, yeah. But I'm suggesting that the person from the future, the modern professional, knows how to act. They know how to present themselves. They know how to show up for the interview. They know how to dress. They know there's these simple things. They're, in my opinion, a lot of it is common sense, but it's not common practice. And it amazes me. And you could look at somebody's documentation and go, this is like insane. How did you, didn't you see all these errors? How did you not notice all this problem? And I think because no one's taught us. And so that's something good. But I want to talk about the other side of that coin. So we talked about kind of a negative situation, people that fail on their documentation, they fail on their professionalism, they go to the job board and they spam out a bunch of resumes with no real plan or care in that. Let's talk about the other side. Can you tell me about a client who came to you unsure of their next step and what happened after working with you? And I want to hear about someone who actually listened to you, followed directions, did what you said, and got a result. Because I believe if you do those things, you can have the results versus I'm going to do my own thing. Like I'm smarter than the professional. But can you tell me a positive example of that?
Yeah, sure. The first person who comes to my mind is a student I worked with about a year ago. And I help a lot of students, but Rudy really sticks out. I don't know if you met Rudy at PETA or not, but he was a CompTIA. He studied CompTIA. Before he was at PETA, he went to UNLV, studied cybersecurity. Okay, he was promised a job with that cybersecurity boot camp. And of course, he took the cybersecurity boot camp, couldn't find employment at all. So he went to PETA and studied CompTIA. And he came up to me and he said, look, I'm really serious about this. He had a bartending background, 10 years worth of bartending experience, way different than IT. And he comes to me and he says, look, I'm very serious. I want to be involved in computer networking. I want a job as a computer network engineer. And I could tell he was serious. I said, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. So he walked through my career services program. He didn't find employment right away. He was looking for that perfect employer for him. 3 months down the line, after a serious job search, he called me up, told me, "Hey, look, I have a job interview with UNLV tech support." And I told him, "Man, this is golden for you. If you could get this job, you can write your own ticket in Las Vegas in terms of IT." So I helped him with his interview prep. He nailed the interview. He got hired. And he's still at, this is about 9 months, a year ago. And he's still, doing his thing at UNLV. So he gets, my advice to him was, look, you're golden. Stay at this position for no less than 3 years. And then you can write your own ticket wherever you want to go.
I'm a firm believer in that as well. It always starts with knowing what you want. And here's, good, better, best when it comes to the academy. Good is you found us and you're looking to improve, but you might be in the middle of your life. You might be kind of towards the tail end. You might be in your 30s, 40s, 50s. And good is you found us, but you've made a mess for your life previously. And I mean that. I don't mean that in a derogatory or negative way. I'm not judging you, but I'm saying if you are not where you want to be in all those 5 areas, spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, and financially, relationally, whatever you want, those 5 areas, if you're not where you want to be in each of those 5 areas, you've made a mess somewhere in your life. And you can improve, but you got to stop digging. You're in a hole. The fastest way out is to stop digging. Mm-hmm. So this young man, 10 years as a bartender, he realized, man, if I continue on this path, I'm going to be 15, 20, 30. I'm never going to get to where I want to be. Stop digging. Then you can work on getting yourself out of the hole. That's good. Mm-hmm. Better is before, the hole gets too deep, you realize, I'm in my 20s and I don't have a career and I'm working in the casino and, I make enough to live, but I need better. So that's kind of, you stop yourself before you get too deep. Best, I think, is, getting these young people right out of high school, get them right into a program, get them learning and growing so they never go into debt, never get student loans, never get stuck in a predatory car loan and, getting a mortgage before they're ready, having children out of wedlock or having multiple kids before you get married, not having a career, not having a goal and a vision for life. That to me is the best. But regardless of where you are, you can improve and you can get better. And yes, those years from 18 to 2022, those are amazing time to really grow and to build yourself. Because when you're 20 to 30, the year range, our bodies as young men, you're invincible. I hate to say it like that, but when I was in my 20s, I thought I could do anything. I did, I did a lot of, physical stuff that just, wrecked my body. But at the time I was thinking, oh, man, I'm invincible. I can do whatever. I can party all night, go to work, wake up, just push it. Mm-hmm. Because when you're young, you can. That's the time to make mistakes. That's the time to get out there and to figure out your life. But by the time you start getting 30, 35, 40, you get yourself a family, get yourself some kids, that's not the time to be taking risks and to being, it's like you said, about 35 is when people get serious about their career. By the time you're 35, you could have your own business, your home could be paid off, you could have a successful relationship, you could have a fully funded emergency fund, you could have retirement set up, have all these things in your favor and live a life that most people only dream about because you made good decisions from 18 to 30. And so That's amazing. I love to hear that success story. And you have to listen. You have to put your ego aside. And if somebody has what you want and they're willing to tell you how to get it, it doesn't matter if you think you have a better way. It doesn't matter if you heard on TikTok or some YouTube short, somebody else, dangling shiny object in front of you going, oh, you could have a million. We used to have this thing that the infomercial, the real estate guy would be like, I've got a Ferrari and all this good stuff. And you just need to buy my program. And it's like, that guy got famous for selling a program. You got poor buying his program, because if it worked, he wouldn't need to sell you a program. This is the reality of the thing. So moving forward, talking about your business, where do you see Strategic Meg heading in the next 5 years?
I'm working hard to expand my strategic philosophies into other vocational schools and colleges. I'm working with, right now I'm working with Professional Institute of Technology and Accounting here in Las Vegas. I'm also working with Gainesville Technical College in Florida. So 5 years, I'd like to see Strategic integrated into half a dozen or hopefully a dozen vocational schools throughout the United States.
Okay, very good. So DK, what's one piece of advice that you would give to someone listening who's feeling stuck or uncertain about their career path and seeks direction and rooted in wisdom and understanding?
Excellent question. I would advise first to sit down with yourself, ask yourself what your interests are. Don't worry so much about where you see yourself in 20 years. Ask yourself where you want to be in 5 years, and make a career path towards that direction. The trades are what I would advocate for if you're in that 18 to 20 year range until you figure it out. Always remember to conduct yourself with professionalism. If you don't consider yourself having a professional mindset, start getting in that zone, because that's what's going to get you from point A to point B. So that's what I would recommend somebody who might be lost in their career direction. Sit down with yourself, understand what your interests are, make a short-term plan to get there, whether it's in the trades or even if you want to go to a 4-year school. Make that plan and start your journey.
Yeah, I think it's super important to know kind of what you want to do. And the general advice that most people get from childhood is go to college, go to college, go to college. And it's like this, people asking other people's kids when they're teenagers, what college are you going to go to? And when are you going to go to college? And college. And so I think a lot of young people, they just think that it's just the thing to do. And they go with no plan, no end result they want. And it's just something that you do for 2 or 4 years, go to university. I love what Jordan Peterson talks about in 12 Rules for Life book. He talks about this idea of if you sit down on the edge of your bed and you ask yourself the question, what incredibly stupid thing am I doing that's causing me the pain in my life? Whatever it is, what's causing me not to have the things or the thing that I want. If we are honest with ourselves and we ask the question and we sincerely want the answer, what'll happen is our mind, call it conscious, call it God, call it the universe, call it the still small voice inside of us, will usually give us an answer. And so I think it's the same thing with career. It's looking at yourself, looking at your background, what you like to do. And here's the cool thing. When you're a teenager, you should do multiple things. As soon as you're able to get working, I think in Nevada it's 16, maybe 15, but 16 years old, you should have, 10 jobs. You should try all different kinds of things. before you commit to a 2 or a 4 year degree. What I love about the trades is generally trade schools for a certification, it's about 6 months. So I think that like with the process with the Eagles Wing Academy, I can get someone at 18, it's June, currently 2025, and high school seniors are graduating in upcoming days, and they're starting their adult life. A person who comes to the Eagles Wing Academy in June of their 18th year could, by the end of the year, have a certification, go through a career services process with Strategic Meg, get all your documents together, do your job search, get yourself in an entry-level job, work at that job until you're 20, have built up some experience, have built up some skills, and then moved on to another job, moved on to, something that pays more, or get promoted or grow and build. And then by the time you're 30, by following, skillful and godly wisdom with finances, you could own your home. You could have the blueprint for retirement. It's literally, like $300 a month from 18 to 26, and then you retire at 65 with $3 million. It's some crazy, and it's compounding interest, but it's you got to be skillful. You have to be mindful. You have to move towards the thing. But I look at that and I go, that kind of process beats going to a university for 2 years, not working, just studying, getting that degree. Then once you get done with that degree, most of the time, generally for skillful trades, there's some kind of certification that you're going to need. It's like the gentleman who went to the boot camp. Well, when he finished, he probably recognized, I need to have the CompTIA certification. Well, that would have been really nice if UNLV. I went to ITT Tech in the early 2000s. When I graduated, I had 0 certifications. Yes, I had the diploma from the school, but they didn't tell me you need certifications. And if I would have known that, I could have went about going and getting those, and it would have saved me a lot of heartache, but nobody told me. So I think do the certifications first, get yourself working, and then if it's necessary to do college, it becomes clear, and usually it'll be like an employer will either pay for it or subsidize it in some way, or there will be a promise of, if you get your degree, we'll promote you and pay you this. That's a whole lot better than going in on a hope and a prayer. So let's talk about how our listeners can connect with you and get started with Strategic Meg, DK.
Absolutely. So you could definitely reach out to me by going to our website, read about us, see if you like what we do. That website address is strategicmeg.com. I'd also be interested in talking with you. You can give me a call directly, 702-906-8760. Would love to have, a half-hour conversation with you to talk about your career goals and make a action plan on how to reach those goals.
Absolutely. And that's something that with all of the partners and the people who are friends of Eagles Wing, I always try to get our students some kind of free consultation, just to sit down and really talk about what it is your goals are. And if you can decide, or at the very least, open yourself up to a possibility, the expert can help you. It's so important. That's what mentorship is. And we all have to recognize that we are none of us have arrived. We can all do better. We can all have mentorship. I just suggest that, you reach out. So that is definitely good. I want to thank you for sharing your insights and heart for empowering others through strategy, mentorship, and marketing. Your work is truly a gift to those seeking direction and opportunity.
Thank you for having me.
So to our listeners, remember your purpose is not just a dream, it's a destination. Eagles Wing Academy is here to help you soar in every dimension of life. And we hope today's episode brought you clarity, encouragement, and wisdom for your journey. This is Deuce Brandt for the Eagles Wing podcast, praying for your skillful and godly wisdom. Until next time, stay lifted, stay focused, and keep soaring.